Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Makoto answered the call, and Akika's sweet voice came through immediately. Makoto-kun, is it okay if I stop by our place tonight? Her voice was loud. Possibly out of excitement. Given the silence in the room and Utaha's proximity, it was hard not to hear it. Utaha didn't interrupt the call but shot a mocking glance his way. Makoto pretended not to see it. Akika didn't talk long. Once she confirmed that he'd be home that evening, she hung up. Right before she ended the call, Makoto heard noise in the background. It seemed like she was still at the audition venue. Utaha watched him put down the phone without saying a word, her expression half smiling as her confidence returned. Makoto walked over and looked at the computer screen. So, should we continue the stockings topic, or move on to serious business? Utaha couldn't help but laugh. So this is how you act when you're embarrassed. Pretending to be busy. Interesting. It was all just for show, letting her save face. Makoto's expression didn't change. Utaha basked in her own amusement for a moment, then looked at the screen. Let's drop the stockings topic. I came here today with a few questions to ask you. Makoto sighed inwardly. What a shame. He had actually wanted to keep talking about stockings. How did that saying go again? Love rises with the stockings, once off, the heart still trembles. Once Utaha shifted to serious matters, Makoto also dropped the jokes. A while later, Utaha looked at the notes in the document with satisfaction and stretched lazily. Thanks, I've learned a lot again today. Though it's not quite the same as that day. Makoto knew what she meant, but still played along. What feeling? Utaha's eyes took on a nostalgic look as she said a bit wistfully, like a burst of inspiration. After talking with you that day, I couldn't stop writing. Got it. You're here for the creative buff again. By the way, I need to go out again. I meant to just drop by to talk, but I forgot I also needed to buy a charging cable. Utaha said as she stood up. Makoto said, I'll go with you. I need to buy some food anyway. Something for a late-night snack. Utaha paused mid-step, thinking that maybe Makoto assumed she wanted to stay over again. Which reminded her of that night in the guest room. Honestly, it was rather comfortable. Back then, she was half asleep when everything happened, and in hindsight, she felt both ashamed and a little regretful. Her face reddened and she quickened her pace, not wanting Makoto to notice her awkwardness. As for staying the night, she hadn't decided yet. If she was still feeling good later, she wouldn't mind staying. Her parents trusted her completely, supporting whatever she chose to do. After they left, Utaha, perhaps in a good mood, started chatting with Makoto about amusing things at school. You know Sawamura-san, right? I happened to find out she's been asking around about you. After I purposely talked to her a few times, my impression of her changed quite a bit. She's been asking about me? Yeah. Probably because your short film's gotten so popular. Pretty much everyone at school is watching it. It's natural she'd be curious. Makoto didn't agree with Utaha's reasoning. He leaned more toward the idea that after Yukinoshita's mother started interacting closely with Sayuri Sawamura, Ariri must have heard something from her mom. Given how helpful Yukinoshita's mother had been toward him, she'd surely spoken positively about him. Add to that the novelty of a high schooler making a short film. It wasn't surprising if Sayuri mentioned it to Ariri. Utaha didn't notice his distraction. She continued in a strange tone, I haven't talked much with Sawamura-san, but my intuition says she's not the gentle young lady everyone thinks she is. You two are already getting along? He hadn't played matchmaker or tried to connect them. And yet, somehow, they still got to know each other. Makoto found it amusing and asked, so what do you think her true personality is? Utaha said slowly, I think she's an idiot. That's a bit rude. Makoto replied. Both of you are an idiot. Chapter 137, 136, Utaha has a new idea again. Makoto first accompanied Utaha to buy a charging cable. Along the way, they attracted quite a few stares. Most of them were from men. A beautiful girl like her naturally had a high turn-back rate. And even more so once they entered the mall. There are quite a lot of people at this hour. Utaha suddenly said. Makoto replied, it's a good thing I came with you. Otherwise someone would have definitely tried to hit on you. Then should I be thanking you? No need to be so formal. But if you insist, cash is fine. Hey. Utaha let out a laugh that was hard to interpret. As if casually, she said, before I got to know you better, I thought you were the serious type. And now? All my guesses were wrong. That's what they mean by practice beats theory. With my level of knowledge, I can't agree with your interpretation of that phrase. That's fine. We can debate it later if you want. I'm free. Makoto added with a smirk, though you should be prepared. I like to improve during debates. Utaha. There he goes again with that improve. She had a sneaking suspicion Makoto was teasing her about the way she had taken the initiative earlier. When they finished shopping and stepped out, they unexpectedly ran into Hayama Hayato and his group. Both sides were caught a bit off guard. Hayama's group was surprised. Fushimi is out on a date with Kasumijoku-senpai? Are the school rumors true? Makoto was surprised. This might be the first time I've seen Hayama without any girls around. There were 5 boys in total, including Hayama Hayato and one familiar face. Aizawa, who had once shared milk with Makoto and helped out during the short film shoot. 2 of them held unopened game console boxes, so Makoto guessed they had come to buy games. Utaha remained composed. With Makoto's short film dominating school gossip, she didn't worry about romance rumors. Besides, even if gossip about her and Makoto did spread now, she wouldn't try to stop it. After exchanging greetings, someone was about to ask about their relationship when Hayama cut in just in time. By the way, Fushimi, when do you have time to hop on for a game? It's been 2 weeks since our last match. Just now, the guy who wanted gossip got interested too. Oh yeah, Hayama was just telling us how good you are at playing Valorant, Makoto. Said you carried the team on a win streak last time. Hayama was exaggerating. We were just playing in low-rank lobbies. Makoto said with a smile. Can you take me along next time? Sure. At that point, Hayama Hayato said, Makoto, I have something I want to talk to you about. Just the 2 of us. Makoto glanced at Utaha beside him. I'll go wait for you ahead. Utaha said, catching on immediately and walking away. Once the others gave them space, Hayama pulled Makoto aside and asked, you and Kasumijoku-senpai aren't seriously on a date, are you? Never expected you to be interested in gossip. Makoto teased. I'm only interested in gossip about you. That sounded kind of gay, you know. Hayama knew he was joking, but still picked up his phone and hesitated for a moment. I still remember you telling me that you're pursuing every girl you're rumored with. But looking at things now, I'm starting to think you weren't joking. Makoto replied, I never was. Hayama didn't respond immediately. He opened their group chat. One for gaming with a few mutual friends. And scrolled to a message Makoto had sent, no girls in heart, rank up like a god. Below it was a screenshot of a win streak. Holding up the phone with a laugh, Hayama said, you had us all fooled, man. Me included. And then you go off and start dating Kasumijoku-senpai? That's misleading. Makoto gave him a weird look. I said no girls in heart, not no girls around you. Is that really so hard to understand? Hayama. After goofing around for a bit, Hayama dropped his smile and got serious. Makoto, you better watch out for a love triangle situation. Makoto sensed genuine concern and replied half-jokingly, you're starting to make me think Yumeko's right. That you're secretly into me. Huh, my orientation's perfectly normal. Hayama said, giving him a pat on the shoulder. I helped out on your filming site. I can tell Akika and some of the other girls have a thing for you. So. He paused. Just don't end up getting taken out by a love triangle, okay? I'd hate to lose an interesting friend. Makoto nodded. Got it, Hayama-senpai. After they split up, Makoto walked over to where Utaha was waiting, only to hear some commotion from Hayama's direction. Utaha turned her head along with him and saw a middle-aged man in a suit grabbing a male student. You snuck out again? Look at that Makoto from your school. He's out there making films with his classmates. Why can't you be more like him? Dad, what are you even talking about? With my modeling and decon grades, how am I supposed to compare with him? I think you're the one spouting nonsense. I mean, look at me. I'm handsome as hell, aren't I? Dad, do you not have a mirror on you? Should I turn on my phone's front camera so you can see? There was a brief pause. Then came the iconic scene, a father who had not yet disowned his son, pulled out a Seven Wolves belt. Even Makoto couldn't help but admire the kid, brave soul. Utaha chuckled and turned to look at Makoto. Seeing that scene, I'm starting to seriously suspect something. What is it? That from the moment you told me you had a way to handle the rumors, you'd already planned to use the principal's legendary pass to divert attention. And after that, you used filming with Akiko and the others to seamlessly dominate school headlines. Makoto laughed. If I said I didn't think that far ahead, would you believe me? You tell me. Do I look like I'd believe that? Utaha shot back and walked off first with a little sway in her hips. Clearly, after today's game of hunter and prey, Makoto had left her with the impression of being deeply strategic. A formidable opponent. One not to be confronted directly. Utaha suddenly thought, since that guy is so into her legs, maybe she could start from there and regain the initiative? She was never one to accept defeat easily. Just as they finished shopping and reached an intersection, they heard a dull thud and a girl's pained yelp from around the corner. Makoto and Utaha looked at each other and moved forward in sync. There they saw a blonde girl in a green tracksuit standing on one leg, grimacing in pain and clutching her other foot. The pose was so exaggerated, it looked almost comical. Stunt director. Tom. If she started hopping on one foot while yelling, she'd basically be Tom from Tom and Jerry. Sawamura-san? Utaha was surprised. Just earlier, they'd been talking about her. And now here she was. Makoto glanced past Ariri and saw a small soccer ball by the wall. Given her posture, he could guess what had happened. What are you two doing here? Ariri was nearly crying from the pain, but seeing two famous schoolmates suddenly appear, she quickly forced her foot down and tried to compose herself. Utaha eyed her leg. Looks pretty painful. You wouldn't be crying otherwise. I'm not crying. Ariri snapped, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Utaha didn't argue. How's your leg? Is it serious? Makoto added, I suggest you at least get it checked out. Embarrassed to be seen in such a pitiful state, Ariri put up a front. It's just a little pain. I'm already feeling better. Then Utaha noticed the soccer ball behind her. Her gaze sharpened. Were you playing soccer in the street and hurt yourself? As soon as she heard soccer, Ariri visibly blushed. I wasn't playing soccer. I was just reading a manga, saw the ball near my foot, and kicked it on impulse. Makoto picked up the ball and weighed it in his hand. Unlucky. This thing's not even a real ball. It's filled with sand. Ariri got angrier. Who would do something so awful? I still suggest checking your foot. If your nail's damaged, it might bleed. Or worse, ruin the shape of your nail. Makoto said. Ariri froze, visibly panicked. But she'd just said she was fine. If she checked now, she'd lose even more face. Utaha suddenly asked, how far is your house from here? Ariri, confused but answering anyway, said, not far. About 20 minutes. Utaha turned to Makoto. You have medicine at home? Yeah. Utaha decided immediately. Perfect. I have things to do at Makoto's place anyway. Sawamura-san, you can come too. Once we're sure your injury isn't serious, you can apply some ointment before heading home. Ariri hesitated. Eh? But I'm really fine. It's settled. Utaha's upperclassman authority kicked in. Ariri hesitated for a few seconds before blushing and saying, then I'll be in your care. With a senpai accompanying her, she wasn't too embarrassed to go to a guy's place. Although she still felt awkward, her foot was more important. And besides. So Kasumijoka-senpai and Fushimi are actually really kind? Ariri thought happily. Chapter 138, 137, Utaha has a new idea again, too. Makoto glanced sideways at Utaha. Kasumijoka's hatching another plan, isn't she? Utaha looked calm on the outside. But in her heart, just as I thought, Sawamura-san gives off total airhead vibes. She barely knows Fushimi, while Akiko has 4 sisters helping her. I need dependable allies too. With the looks and figures of the Nakano sisters, Utaha had long understood, solo play wasn't going to cut it in this game. As for whether Ariri might be a burden, Utaha had full confidence in herself. She would handle the offense. All she needed was for Ariri to stand firmly on her side when it came time to face off against the Nakano sisters. By the time they reached Makoto's place and took off their shoes, Ariri politely said, "Excuse me for intruding." The 2 girls walked into the living room while Makoto went to get the first aid kit. His house had all the necessary supplies. You can check your injury now, Utaha said casually as she sat down. Okay. Ariri was much more reserved. She sat formally across from Utaha, pulled up her pant leg, and revealed her pale, delicate ankle. She removed her white sock and looked at her reddened toe with relief. Looks like it's nothing serious. Utaha glanced over as well. You got lucky. Most people in your situation would have cracks in their toenails. Or worse, bleeding. Don't say stuff like that, it's terrifying. Ariri turned pale. As a pretty girl, she couldn't even imagine her toenail getting ruined. Makoto returned with the first aid kit. So? How bad is it? It's fine. Just a little red. Ayuri shrank her foot back shyly. Maybe it was a girlish sense of modesty. She was too embarrassed to stick her foot out for him to check. Looks like you're lucky, Sawamura-san. Makoto said. Ayuri blinked, a doubtful look in her eyes. That line sounds familiar. Did you two rehearse this? Makoto frowned. Rehearse what? Utaha smiled gracefully. We came home together. If we had planned our lines ahead of time, don't you think you would have noticed? Ayuri blushed and didn't respond. Makoto added, we really didn't plan anything. It's just a coincidence. Utaha gave a smile of agreement. Exactly. Oh. Ayuri didn't want to keep talking about it. Utaha noticed everything and smiled subtly. Looks like I was completely right. Sawamura-san really does have that adorable airheaded vibe. Even better. If I befriend her, she won't backstab me. She sneakily glanced at Ayuri's chest, then let her gaze trail downward. Her confidence grew. Ayuri wasn't exactly flat-chested, but she was only slightly above that line. Sure, her face was cute. But when it came to body comparison, Utaha felt she had the clear upper hand. In her mind, it was only natural that Makoto would be drawn to Akika and herself. After all, for a high school girl to have such a mature, voluptuous figure, be it chest, waist to hip ratio, or legs, it was undeniably attractive to boys. Both she and the Nakano sisters were top tier in that category. Which meant, compared to the relatively plain Ayuri, Utaha saw her as a safe ally. Ayuri quietly put her socks back on and was subtly glancing around when she suddenly heard Makoto ask. By the way, I heard from someone that you were asking around about me at school? Huh? Ayuri froze, then quickly waved her hands. No, that's a misunderstanding. I guess not exactly. I was a little curious about the short film you made. But that's just because my mom kept bringing it up. Personally, I'm not interested in filming or anything. She rambled on in a hurry, clearly just trying to deny that she'd been secretly asking about a boy. Makoto tried hard not to laugh but managed to hold it in. I see. I just thought, since you seemed interested in filming, maybe we could satisfy your curiosity if everyone had time. Crap. She denied it too firmly just now. Ayuri awkwardly averted her gaze, nervously fiddling with her hands, a faint blush blooming on her cheeks. Well, if you're really up for it, I wouldn't mind listening. Makoto pretended not to notice her embarrassment. You're probably not curious about the filming process, but more about the short film's content, right? How did you know that? Because you said you weren't interested in filming. And since everyone at school's been talking about the short film lately, it's only natural you'd get curious. Yeah, that's it exactly. Ayuri nodded quickly, relieved she managed to cover it up. Then she tilted her flushed face up, her eyes sparkling, practically broadcasting "Tell me everything." Makoto put the first aid kit away, poured tea for both girls, and finally sat down. There's not much to the short film's plot. If I just told you now, it'd feel like I'm spoiling it. But I can definitely tell you about the funny stuff that happened during filming and how we got everything done. Ayuri immediately sat up straight. The excited little underdog was now paying full attention. In truth, her interest in Makoto was intense. And it had nothing to do with her mother constantly mentioning him. She was simply intrigued on her own. The fact that he had managed to shoot a full short film as a high schooler alone impressed her. But what piqued her most was the things other students had said at school. I visited their set once, and whenever Makoto gave a motivational speech, it got me so fired up. It was insanely cool. After that, others echoed the same. It was as if his speeches had some kind of magical power. Anyone who visited the set would end up coming back every day, just like clocking into a job. Ayuri had considered sneaking over to watch too, but she worried. Since she wasn't close to him. If someone saw her lurking around, it might completely ruin her reputation. Now, the atmosphere in the living room has shifted. At first, it was just Makoto talking, with Ayuri pretending to listen casually. But soon enough, she was fully engrossed, starting to ask questions. One after another, letting out all the curiosity she'd been bottling up. Makoto answered each of them patiently. Meanwhile, Utaha was listening half-heartedly. She was replaying Ayuri's reactions in her head. If her intuition was correct, this Sawamura girl might have a bit of a tsundere streak. And that was a problem. Tsunderes were unpredictable. They could mess things up at critical moments. It was like having a ticking time bomb without knowing where the remote was or when it might go off. Utaha rubbed her temples. She'd need to rethink things carefully. For now, she'd postpone asking Makoto for advice. There were more important matters. A while later, both Makoto and Ayuri had finished their tea, having talked until their throats were dry. Thank you for today, Fushimi-kun, and you too, Kasumajoka-senpai. Airi stood and politely thanked them. Utaha understood the hint. Heading back? Yeah. Perfect, I'm heading out too. Let's go together. Utaha stood up as well, cheerfully pulling out her phone. Let's exchange contact info. Airi agreed without hesitation. After they were done, Airi sneaked a glance at Makoto, clearly wondering if she should ask to exchange line IDs with him too. Utaha smoothly offered a fake assist. Oh right, you two could exchange contact info too. You know each other now. Airi's heart lit up. Senpai really was a good person. She had no idea this was exactly the result Utaha had planned. After saying goodbye to Makoto, the two girls walked downstairs. Utaha smiled. Actually, I just thought of something I wanted to talk to you about. Are you in a hurry to go home? Not really. Airi replied. Then let's stop by the dessert cafe up ahead. Okay. Once the two girls had left, Makoto was about to start cleaning when Nino messaged him. Nino, did Akiko contact you today? Makoto, yeah. Why? Do you need something from her? Nino, just curious, just curious. Makoto looked at his phone suspiciously. Was Nino in one of her moods again? Meanwhile, Akiko had just stepped out of a building, happily telling her manager that she'd landed a supporting role in a movie. That's great. The manager beamed. Even if it's not a huge part, it's still a big step forward for you. I think so too. Thanks for all your help lately. Don't mention it. Oh, maybe you can celebrate with your sisters. Like. Huh? Isn't that one of your sisters? The manager paused mid-sentence, and Akiko turned to see Nino walking over with a bright smile, dressed up beautifully. She even had makeup on? Akiko instantly knew something was off. The manager, wisely, didn't greet Nino and quietly excused herself. Akiko watched as Nino approached. Just as she was about to say something, Nino smiled and said, I came to pick you up. Of course, if you want to go somewhere else, I can tag along too. Akiko, who asked you? Nino, can't I ask myself and answer too? The air tensed for a second. Akiko quickly regained her composure and smirked. I'm happy you came to pick me up. But if you're not going to be honest with me, I'll be upset. Glad you brought up honesty. Nino's smile faded. Why don't you explain why you never came home after sneaking out that night? I did tell you. I ran into a problem with my acting and needed urgent help, so I went to get advice from Makoto. Just advice? Who gets advice that takes all night? Because we're both very hardworking. Nino was nearly speechless at her sister's shamelessness. So the two of you were hardworking all night, huh? But she didn't back down. I actually contacted Makoto just now. Nino said. Akiko's guard went up, but she smiled. So? I'm planning to see him tonight. She paused for dramatic effect. I have something I need advice on too. Chapter 139, 138, leg picks at 7 p.m., Mayu called Makoto and said she wouldn't be coming back tonight. Hiratsuka Shizuka had invited her over. Makoto didn't think much of it at first and chatted with her casually. But as they talked, she muttered, actually, we were going to come back after dinner. She stayed over at my place before too. But this time, she insisted I come to her place. Super persistent. Wait, no. Intense might be a better word. Intense? Like, she forced you to come over? Yeah. I told her we could just chat at your place. Since exams are coming, we're supposed to exchange some teacher tips. But she insisted. It's like she's afraid of going to your place. Makoto understood immediately. This had to be because of that kiss the other night. Sure, Hiratsuka Shizuka had acted normal at school since then, like nothing happened. But Makoto knew. That night left a deep impression on her. Not just because it was her first kiss, but also due to their age gap. And let's not forget, she'd gotten emotional, stripped down, and started entertaining herself in the guest room. All that combined. No way she'd forget it soon. If she wanted to wipe that memory, she'd probably need to punch herself in the head. So now she was dragging Mayu to her place. Clearly avoiding Makoto. But the more she avoided him, the more Makoto wanted to do something about it. It's about time I had a one-on-one talk with Shizuka-sensei. After hanging up, Makoto had made up his mind. But tonight was out of the question. Akiko had called earlier saying she'd stop by. So he was waiting for her. Except. At 7:30, instead of Akiko's call, he got a voice chat request from Yukino. Why would she call at night? Makoto knew her well enough to know. If she had something to say, she'd usually just text. So a voice call meant it was serious. The short film was about to air. Maybe she was getting nervous? That had to be it. Makoto figured it out and immediately hit decline. 2 seconds later, Yukino messaged. Makoto didn't reply. Instead, he sent a video call request. Now the ball was in her court. After a short pause, Yukino declined. Makoto expected that. And requested again. After a bit more hesitation, Yukino accepted. The call connected, and her beautiful face filled the screen. She'd clearly just taken a bath. Her flawless face was completely bare, not a trace of makeup. And even without it, Yukino was still breathtakingly beautiful. "Why did you initiate a video call?" Yukino was the first to speak. Her camera was aimed squarely at her face, revealing only a sliver of her soft, fair neck. Clearly, she did it on purpose. Isn't that an easy question? The point of a video call is so that you can see the person you want to see. Makoto replied. Yukino stared blankly into the camera. You're saying things like that on purpose. Which means what you really want to say might make me angry, so you're choosing to hide it. Makoto raised his hand into view and began clapping. No wonder Akega acknowledged you as a scholar of Makotoism. Yukino finally showed some expression. Though it was just disdain. So you're not planning to be honest? Makoto countered with a question instead. By the way, are you barefaced right now? Yes. She answered directly. That reminds me of something I once read in a book. Want to hear it? No. Great, I'll tell you now. Yukino sighed, closing her eyes briefly before reopening them. Fine, hurry up. Makoto chuckled. The book said that in today's world, if a girl dares to meet a guy without makeup, it means one of two things: either she's too lazy to bother with it, or she's so naturally beautiful she doesn't need it. So, my adorable young lady, which one are you? Yukino was silent for 2 seconds before replying confidently, thanks for the compliment. I know I'm cute. She didn't give Makoto a chance to tease her further. The two were already quite familiar with each other. While she still wasn't fully capable of handling Makoto's updated approach, at the very least, she could hold her own in some exchanges. Then Makoto changed the subject. By the way, another sponsor reached out to our club's account recently. Yukino's expression turned serious. Even though you're the club president and this kind of thing should be discussed together, I still think we shouldn't keep accepting ad deals. I feel the same. Huh? Yukino blinked, skeptical. Really? Did you think I was trying to make constant income off the club's account? I think it's entirely possible. My adorable young lady, now that I can't agree with. Makoto sat up a bit straighter, half joking as he said. I wouldn't mind if we all earned a little spending money together, but I've always thought that once money gets involved too early in relationships, it could do more harm than good. Yukino's eyes lit up. Go on. Makoto knew this topic would interest her and grinned. Sure, everyone might start out feeling like they're gaining something. But in truth, they might be losing. And the longer it goes on, the worse that loss becomes. Yukino gazed at him for a moment, then her lips curled into a small smile. This might be the first time I fully agree with you as president. Wait, so you didn't recognize me before this? Only halfway. You come off as unreliable sometimes. I object. Your objection is overruled. As they continued talking, Yukino visibly relaxed more than she had when the video first started. She had been worried when Makoto brought up advertising again, fearing he might accept another deal. As Makoto had pointed out, making some money was fine. But if it became too frequent, friendship would be bound too tightly with money. Over time, even something like someone earning less could spark resentment. Makoto understood these concerns, but he didn't say the rest of what he was thinking. With the Nakano sisters, their character made it highly unlikely that they'd fall out over splitting money. Still, since Yukino was clearly nervous about the upcoming short film release, the video call was meant to distract her and steer the conversation in a direction that would ease her mind. The two kept chatting casually for nearly half an hour, with Makoto bringing up topics and Yukino sharing her thoughts in turn. Then, out of nowhere, Yukino asked, "Aren't you going to ask why I contacted you tonight?" The answer was right there in the question, so there's no need to ask. Makoto replied. Yukino's eyes softened instantly. So he'd known from the start? She really had been nervous tonight. Part of her worried about what to do if the short film received negative feedback. Everyone had worked so hard together for this. Even if she had once said, we just need to do our best, no need to think about anything else. When the moment actually arrived, she still felt anxious. She'd experienced this kind of emotion before, but back then, she always bore it alone. Now, things were different. She knew there was someone she could talk to. Even if there were things she disliked about him, whenever she had something she wanted to share or vent, he was always the first person who came to mind. Feeling better now? Makoto's voice brought her back. Yukino smiled gently. Yeah. Much better. So, how are you going to thank me? Oh, so you helped me with an ulterior motive? I'd call it a request. What's your request? Let me see your legs. Click. The call was cut off. Makoto didn't look the least bit disappointed. He leaned back on the sofa and waited patiently. 3 minutes later, Yukino sent a message. Makoto opened it right away. There was no text, only a photo. It didn't show her face. Just the lower half of her body in a camisole night dress. It confirmed Makoto's earlier guess. During the video call, she had kept the camera trained on her face and never moved it downward because her outfit was too revealing to show. Sure, Makoto had seen nearly everything before, but Yukino was a reserved girl. There was no way she'd show herself in such attire to a guy late at night on her own initiative. Her legs in the photo were slim and well-proportioned, with the hem of her dress revealing a portion of her smooth, fair thighs. Her feet rested on the bedspread. Heels full and round, toes aligned like little pearls, perfectly trimmed nails painted in a soft, youthful pink that gleamed under the light. Then Yukino sent a message, only this once. Think of it as thanks for earlier, Makoto, Captain ready for takeoff, Yukino? Just before 8:20, Makoto finally received a message from Akika. But when he opened the door, it wasn't just Akika outside. Nino was with her, dressed up beautifully. Good evening. Nino greeted with a confident smile. Akika smiled too, though hers was clearly a bit forced. Good evening. Makoto replied, stepped aside to let them in, and asked, are you too sure it's okay to come out this late? Nino answered first. I already told Miku and the others. Akika nodded, her smile dry. Yep, we talked to them together. Everything's fine. There is definitely nothing going on. Back at the Nakano house, Itsuki was pacing the living room with a frown. Miku and Yotsuba, sitting on the couch, nodded in agreement. Akika and Nino are definitely up to something. Chapter 140, 139, Mere Love Triangle Drama. I passed the audition today. The director even praised my acting. Too bad it was already dark by the time I finished. Otherwise, I would have called everyone to celebrate. In the living room, the two girls sat on either side of Makoto. Akika was cheerfully talking about her audition, her voice loud enough to drown out the TV commercials. That's definitely worth celebrating. Makoto said. So I came here to find you. Akika said, beaming. Though it's too late for dinner, at least you can keep me company, right? Nino abruptly cut in. And this is why you're not going home tonight? Huh? I never said I was spending the night. Nino, why is your mind jumping to weird conclusions? Am I jumping, or are you lying? Instead of responding, Akika turned to Makoto and said. The film I auditioned for has a character who's a teenage boy in a suit. I couldn't stop thinking this afternoon that you'd be perfect for that role. I'm really not interested in acting. Makoto replied. Akika blinked at him, smiling sweetly. I know. But even if you're not going to act, you could still wear a suit. For me. Before Makoto could answer, Nino cut in sharply. No way. Suits are off limits. Makoto in a suit totally clashed with her taste. And besides, Nino knew full well Akika was competing with her. Otherwise she wouldn't have sidestepped her question earlier. So she stood up without hesitation and looked down at them. I think Akika's idea is terrible. Akika calmly looked at her sister. Oh? Do you have a different opinion? Nino did. Her gaze shifted to Makoto, eyes brimming with anticipation. I think Makoto would look great with dyed blonde hair. Like a delinquent straight out of a manga. Then she reached toward Makoto. As he started to move, she added, don't move. She undid the top 2 buttons of his shirt. Her expression turned even more satisfied as her eyes reflected his collarbone. I knew it. This suits you so much more. Just the hair color needs to change. Akika, seeing Nino actually touching him, started to lose her composure. Nino, don't you think calling my sense of style awful is a bit strange? Why would it be? If Makoto really looked like a delinquent, he'd give a lot of people a headache. I think you're the only one who'd be bothered. I knew you'd say that. Why don't we ask Makoto and see whose opinion he agrees with? Both girls turned toward Makoto simultaneously. What do you think, Makoto? Nino asked, tension in her gaze. Akika smiled smugly. You're not into the delinquent look, are you? Makoto slowly raised a finger. Hold on, I have an idea. What idea? I could wear the suit Akika likes, pair it with a shirt, unbutton the top like Nino suggested, and dye my hair blonde. That way, I satisfy both your tastes, right? Akika and Nino. Neither of the girls responded. They looked at each other briefly, then quickly looked away. What started as a competition between sisters ended up with a solution where no one got to win alone. Now look what happened. Neither of them was happy anymore. Makoto observed the scene, thinking to himself, you think a little love triangle is enough to hold me back? He deliberately stood up and made a show of heading toward the bedroom. I think I really do have a blonde wig at home. I also have a suit. Since we're all free right now, I'll go change and show you what I'd look like. No. Nino instinctively grabbed Makoto's right arm. Akiko was momentarily stunned. Nino, you're going hands-on again? Just how sly have you become? Initially, she had been curious enough to want to see what kind of strange outfit Makoto was talking about. But now, she'd changed her mind. She grabbed his left arm as well. Seeing that his goal was achieved, Makoto said, I was joking. I just wanted to change into pajamas. Really? Nino asked, skeptical. Of course it's true. I do have a suit, but I've never bought a wig, nor do I have any hair dye. Only then did Nino let go. Then she and Makoto both looked at Akiko, who was still holding on. Akiko, turning on her acting skills, smiled sweetly. Why are you two looking at me? Nino gritted her teeth and was just about to act when Makoto lifted a hand and gave Akiko's little backside a firm pat. Let go already. I need to change. He said. Nino froze. He just smacked Akiko's butt? And he did it so naturally, like it was no big deal? If I hadn't let go, would he have smacked me too? Compared to Nino's shock, Akiko only blushed a little and then let go naturally. Once Makoto entered the bedroom, the two sisters fell into simultaneous silence, as if they had agreed to it beforehand. For a moment, the only sound in the living room was the television. Nino, what are you thinking? Akiko decided to probe first. Nino gave her sister a complicated look. You and Makoto. Exactly what is going on between you two? She trailed off before finishing the question. Akiko's face was still tinged with a flush as she chuckled softly. Take a guess. I won't guess. Nino quickly lowered her voice, her face cold. But if you're not going home tonight, then neither am I. Are you serious? It's not like you're the only one who likes him. That one clean line from Nino rendered Akiko speechless. Geez. This time, Akiko's helpless expression wasn't acting. She even sighed. During today's audition, the director heard I had 4 sisters and said my house must be noisy. Sisters always like to fight over things. Nino's face turned slightly red. Akiko looked her sister up and down and said in a low voice, looks like the director was right. Sisters don't just fight over stuff. They fight over people too. Like your little war with Yuki Noshida? Nino suddenly said. Akiko was stunned. The question caught her completely off guard. Seeing her reaction, Nino couldn't help feeling a little smug. I may not talk to Yuki Noshida much, but you seem to have forgotten. Besides you, there's someone else in our family who gets along quite well with her. Was it Itsuki who told you? Akiko finally realized. Nino's confidence was surging again. To be exact, I asked Itsuki. You didn't hide your conflicts with Yuki Noshida from her. Did you really think she wouldn't remember? Damn it, why would that airhead Itsuki tell Nino all this? She was supposed to be on my side. I even gave her so many treats. How could she switch sides like this? Akiko was feeling conflicted. Now that Nino knew about her rivalry with Yuki Noshida, she would definitely see it as Akiko competing with Yuki Noshida for Makoto. In that case, if Nino tried to do the same, she wouldn't feel any guilt or hesitation. She could even say out loud, I learned this move from my big sister. The more Akiko thought about it, the worse the situation seemed. Meanwhile, Makoto stood just behind the bedroom door. He really was changing into pajamas. After all, they were more comfortable. But after changing, he didn't come back out. Instead, he sneakily stayed by the door. He was gathering intel. Until now, it hadn't been hard for him to hold both girls' hands. The tricky part was getting them to hold each other's hands in peace. Conveniently, the solution to that tricky issue had presented itself tonight. Earlier, instead of using words to get Akiko to let go, he had smacked her soft, round little butt. He did that specifically for Nino to see. Nino had already been competing with Akiko that night. Her fighting spirit was flaring. So by giving her that extra little push, he could crack the stalemate. He really was shameless. Seeing that the two sisters had fallen silent, Makoto finally stepped out and said, I just realized it's kind of boring for us to sit here doing nothing. Do you two want to do something? No. Both girls answered in unison. Neither of them had the mental capacity to think about what to do. Their minds were full of all sorts of personal schemes. As everyone knows, timing is everything when launching a group attack. Makoto seized the moment. Since you don't know what to do, I could give you a little private tutoring session. I object. Akiko immediately reacted the moment she heard the word tutoring. She had no intention of turning this night into a study session. Before Nino could say anything, she jumped in. Do you have any videotapes, Makoto? I think watching a movie at night would be just perfect. I agree. Let's watch a movie. Nino chimed in. Makoto turned to rummage through a drawer. I've got tapes. Most of them are tokusatsu shows and a few horror films. Then let's watch a horror movie. Akika's eyes lit up with an idea. Nino froze. Horror was not her thing. She clenched her little fists, convinced that Akika just wanted to see her freak out in embarrassment. Nino steeled herself. She would keep her composure no matter what. But when the movie started, she was the one sitting next to Makoto and could no longer keep calm. She bit her lip tightly, unwilling to embarrass herself in front of Akika or the boy she liked. What she didn't expect was that just when a classic jump scare scene played out, while she was still trying to hold it in, Akika loudly cried out, "So scary!" and dove straight into Makoto's arms. Nino. So dirty. Only now did she realize Akika had never intended to watch Nino embarrass herself. The horror film was part of a calculated plan from the start. Her heart soured as she turned to look at her sister hugging Makoto with a pleased expression. But just then, Makoto looked over and met her gaze. And held out his other arm toward her. Nino hesitated for less than a second. With a mixture of surprise and delight, she leaned into his embrace just like Akika. And once again, the two sisters locked eyes. Before they could resume their duel, Makoto casually gave each of them a soft pat on the butt. Watch the movie properly. Both girls blushed and fell silent. Makoto smoothly pulled both of their soft, fragrant bodies into his arms. A mere love triangle? He would crush it effortlessly. Chapter 141, 140, Sharing a blanket is the best ending. Did you notice that scene earlier had a continuity error? In the living room, Makoto had his arms around two soft and lovely girls, watching the still-playing horror movie while occasionally making casual remarks. The more relaxed and laid-back he seemed, the more awkward it became for the Nakano sisters. Ever since Makoto had patted their butts, it was as if they'd both been frozen. Neither had said a word. They thought he would take the next step, or at least say something meaningful. But he really was just watching the movie. And he seemed genuinely into it. Nino blushed deeply in Makoto's arms. Her heart was a mess. Sure, being held by the guy she liked was a joy. But her sister was in the same embrace. Her earlier desire to compete had been smacked away by Makoto's casual hand. Now, her feelings were a jumbled mix of joy and shame, and her eyes shifted all over the place. Akika, too, was unsettled. When Nino had snuggled in as well, she had briefly thought about pushing her advantage. But Makoto's pat had scattered those thoughts, too. Now her sister was in the same boy's arms, and she felt just as embarrassed. Still, embarrassment aside, there was no way she would leave. Running now would be the same as admitting defeat. After a while, Makoto asked, confused, "Why are you both burying your faces like that? Aren't you watching the movie?" "Of course I'm watching." Akika replied first. "I'm watching too," Nino said, eyes drifting. "Oh, I thought you two were zoning out." "Guess I was overthinking it," said Makoto. The sisters fell silent again. They had been zoning out. As the plot advanced, Akika stared at the screen but wasn't really watching. Her brain was working at full speed. She wanted to find something to talk about, to distract herself and calm down. Coincidentally, Nino was thinking the same. A moment later, both sisters blurted out at once, "Makoto." He responded, looking over. They exchanged a glance. Akika hadn't even decided what to say yet, but Nino jumped in first. "You still haven't answered about the outfit ideas we suggested earlier." "Yeah, that's what I wanted to bring up too." Akika picked up the thread. "You two are still thinking about that?" Makoto asked. Nino feigned calmness and said, "Because you never gave us an answer." "Of course we care." "So then, Makoto, what's your answer?" Akika followed up smoothly. As expected of sisters. They were in perfect sync. Makoto inhaled their familiar hair fragrance and said, "Honestly, I haven't decided yet." "Is it that you really haven't decided, or is it that you prefer my sense of fashion, but don't want to disappoint Nino so you won't say it out loud?" Akika seized the initiative. Nino immediately glanced over, eyes sharp, ready to react. But Makoto suddenly tightened the arms wrapped around their waists. Their thoughts were instantly disrupted. Makoto seized the opportunity and said in a teasing tone, "If you really want an answer, then I guess I'd have to say." He deliberately drew out his words, causing both girls to instinctively look up at him. When he met their beautiful eyes, he finally said, "I'm not that interested in dress-up. Compared to your question, I think what matters most is that the three of us live happily together." The two girls. What kind of absurd answer was that? Or was he hinting at something? Akika and Nino's thoughts were thrown into disarray again. Makoto kept his expression unchanged, knowing they were finally going to settle down. At least for the time being, they didn't bring up that question again. Not until the movie finished. Then Makoto let go of them naturally and said, "The movie was okay. Anyway, I'll go prepare the guest rooms. If either of you wants to take a bath, now's a good time. Oh. Makoto stood up and left. After a moment of silence, the two girls silently agreed to bathe first. They both had a lot on their minds, and the bathroom was the perfect private space. They entered one after the other. Once the tub filled, they quietly undressed and slipped into the warm water. About 5 minutes later, Akika, soaking in the tub, finally spoke. Nino, are you really not going home tonight? Nino calmly replied, not unless you go home first. Otherwise, I'm not leaving. I figured as much. Geez, you'd really go this far. Why didn't I think of that before? Akika sighed, genuinely conflicted. Because you used to focus all your energy on Makoto and Yuki no Shida. Nino said bluntly. Akika fell silent for a few seconds before softly saying, I've actually talked with Yuki no Shida quite a few times. Nino wasn't surprised. The two filmed together every day. Not talking would have been odd. Akika continued, you know, Yuki no Shida once told me, there are too many pretty girls around Makoto. Only a fool would date him. This time, Nino was clearly shocked. She really said that? But Itsuki told me. Itsuki told you I often clashed with Yuki no Shida, right? Akika gave a wry smile. Itsuki is supposed to be my ally. So why does she keep helping you? Nino was stunned. You also went to Itsuki for help? No wonder you were always giving her food back then. Akika looked surprised. Wait. You did too? An awkward silence settled in. Akika couldn't hold back her laughter. Looks like we really are sisters. We even chose the same ally. Nino gave a helpless chuckle. Well, besides us, the only ones closest to Makoto are Itsuki and... That's it. Then her face turned suspicious. Do you think? Could Itsuki also? She probably hasn't. Itsuki is a good girl. She's super dense about this kind of stuff. I bet she doesn't even know what romance is. Akika said instinctively. Nino didn't voice her doubts. At least for now, she didn't fully trust Itsuki either. But she still needed her as an ally. At that moment, Akika suddenly chuckled. You know, no matter which of us it is, compared to Yuki no Shida, we're both lacking. Except in the body department. Nino frowned. I don't think so. Akika's eyes gleamed. So you're saying you're willing to join forces with me against Yuki no Shida? Where did that come from? Wait. Akika, you don't mean... Nino froze on the spot. She couldn't even finish her sentence. Akika's tone didn't change. You're not planning to back down, right? Of course not. Even though she was shocked, Nino answered firmly. In that case, shall we work together? Akika's voice grew softer, and her cheeks were already flushed with an alluring pink. Nino's face also turned red. She looked away, flustered. Akika, are you really a girl? How can you say stuff that bold? Well, it's because you're dead set on not giving up. What else can I do? Akika sighed, speaking slowly. Yuki no Shida is an outsider. We're sisters. Since there's no other choice, I'll just have to trust you. Nino blushed even harder. Akika really went that far? Trust me? More like you've decided you can't beat me and are trying to mess with my head. While Nino's mind raced with embarrassment, Akika suddenly asked, so, how far have you and Makoto gone? Huh? Nino jerked her head around. Only to see her sister watching her with concern. She couldn't help asking, Akika, have you completely thrown your shame out the window? Akika said nothing, just stared at her intently. Her gaze was burning with curiosity, impossible to ignore. Seeing that, Nino clenched her fists under the water as if making a decision. Makoto and I have already kissed. That's it? Akika blinked innocently. Nino's face changed drastically. She pointed a trembling finger at her sister. Don't tell me. You. Akika's cheeks were flushed, but her smile was composed. Yup. Makoto and I have a secret. Nino bit her lip. You think this is funny? All I see is a shameless sister making bold declarations in front of me. She could tell Akiko had no intention of staying in the guest room tonight. So what was she supposed to do? Try to guard against Akiko like before? Or sneak over with her? Nino's breathing quickened, her chest rising and falling. She couldn't deny it. Besides the embarrassment, what surged through her most was excitement. And anticipation. Akiko's declaration of taking the lead had clearly fired her up. Even though she was conflicted, her heart leaned toward the latter option. Their bath lasted longer than ever before. When the two girls eventually emerged in bathrobes, Makoto, already waiting in the living room, said, the guest room's all set. I also got 2 new sets of toiletries. Thanks. Akiko replied with a smile. After drying their hair and watching TV for a bit, they returned to their room. Lying on the soft bed, Akiko turned off the ceiling light and left only the bedside lamp on. She glanced over at Nino and saw her eyes closed, saying nothing. "You're already asleep?" Akiko asked, slightly confused. "I'm asleep," Nino replied, still keeping her eyes shut. "Akiko? Seriously? She's still mad about what I said earlier?" Akiko chuckled and lifted the blanket. "Well, since you're asleep, I guess it's time for me to make my move." Before her words could even finish, the doorknob suddenly turned. Both sisters froze. "We were just debating whether to sneak into your room. And now you come sneaking into ours." As the door opened, Makoto appeared in Akiko's line of sight. Only in Akiko's. Because a very flustered Nino, upon hearing the door open, still refused to open her eyes and pretended to sleep. Makoto immediately noticed the trembling of her lashes and understood everything. He deliberately lowered his voice and asked, "Is Nino asleep?" Akiko couldn't hold back a grin and whispered, "Yeah, she's asleep." Under the blanket, Nino's fists clenched tightly. Chapter 142, 141, Punishment. Makoto didn't know what the two sisters had discussed in the bath, but based on his earlier butt-patting move in the living room, he had already picked up on some signals. He figured Akiko would probably try a nighttime ambush. But with Nino around, the odds of success were low. So, he came over himself. Partly to get a better read on their thoughts, and partly to spare Akiko the effort of sneaking around. Now, hearing Akiko cheerfully say Nino's asleep, while also glancing at the pretending to sleep Nino, it was obvious what was going on. Makoto quietly shut the door. When he turned back, Akiko had already lifted the blanket and boldly patted the bed. Normally, that would have been incredibly seductive. But not tonight. Akiko was clearly doing it for Nino to see. As Makoto carefully slid under the covers, he could feel Nino's arms stiffen immediately beside him. Akiko dimmed the lamp and curled into Makoto's chest like a cat, whispering softly, "Why'd you suddenly come over? Still playing this game, huh?" Makoto was surrounded by their soft, faintly sweet scent. He rested a hand gently on Akiko's waist and responded in a hushed voice, "I knew you wouldn't be able to sit still tonight. So I came first." Akiko looked up at him, her delicate face and seductive eyes bathed in the dim light, making her look ethereal. Her smile was no longer the usual sunny one. It was tinged with flirtatious charm. "You guessed wrong. I'm not Akiko. I'm Nino." Nino beside them. Makoto grinned. "If you're Nino, then who's the girl on my right?" "She's obviously Akiko. You know, we're all great at impersonating each other." Akiko smiled sweetly. "So, before I came in, you two planned to switch roles and try to trick me?" "Yup. I'm wearing a wig right now. So is she." Their voices were deliberately soft, but Nino was right there pretending to sleep. Unless she'd gone deaf, there was no way she couldn't hear them. Which was exactly why Nino's thoughts right now were all, "I can't believe Akiko went this far." She was already mentally overwhelmed by what Akiko had said earlier in the bathroom, and then Makoto suddenly showed up without giving her a moment to calm down. Now it was even worse. She had no time to sort through her feelings at all. "If you're Nino, then who am I?" Just as Nino was burning with a mix of shame and frustration, Makoto's voice came again. "So you two had wigs prepared in advance, huh? Well, I actually think that's pretty nice." "What's nice about it?" asked Akiko. Nino also focused in, cracking her eyes open slightly to secretly observe the pair snuggling beside her. Makoto lowered his head and kissed Akiko's smooth hair. "Exactly what it sounds like." "Huh? Don't tell me. You actually came here tonight for Nino?" Akiko kept up the act. "Does it matter? Nino's also a cute, beautiful girl. Wearing nothing but a bathrobe in the middle of the night. Any guy would lose his head," said Makoto casually. Nino quickly shut her eyes again. She had to fight to keep the corners of her lips from twitching. "Makoto, you really are a pervert," Akiko said, sneaking a glance toward Nino. If Akiko saw us like this right now, she'd definitely never approve. "You're really enjoying this whole acting bit, huh?" Makoto wasn't playing along anymore. Akiko giggled, her cheeks already blazing. "Wanna kiss? Geez. Barely done with the role play and you're already this eager?" Makoto's hand on her waist began to move, and with ease he untied the belt of her bathrobe, slipping his hand around her delicate waist. Akiko's eyes quivered, gaze growing more and more alluring. "Kiss me now." Makoto couldn't resist. "Wait a minute. You're actually doing it?" Nino instantly opened her eyes to check, and sure enough, they were for real. At that moment, her fists clenched tightly. "This is outrageous." She sat up abruptly and glared at them, cheeks flushed with fury. "You two, knock it off." "Oh no, we've been caught." Akiko's face was red as a tomato as she closed her eyes, her long lashes fluttering. Pulling off that perfect bashful girl look. And apparently that wasn't enough for her, because she buried her face into Makoto's chest as if to add fuel to the fire. Nino's chest heaved in frustration. Akika, that's enough. After yelling at her sister, she turned to glare at Makoto. But before she could speak, Makoto beat her to it. Not pretending to sleep anymore? Nino was caught off guard. Makoto teased, I really thought you'd keep up the act. I was considering poking you a few times to check. Poking me where, exactly? Nino's face burned. And she clearly seen just now. Makoto's hand was still inside Akika's bathrobe. Though she could be aggressive when riled up, she'd never seen a situation like this before. She ignored Makoto for now and focused on her sister. I know you're a professional actress, and I know you're good at acting. But is it really fun to keep pretending right now? Akika shot back skillfully, you started pretending first. I was just following your lead. Huh? Nino flared up again. Just then, Captain Dragonfly, aka Makoto, stepped in. Are you two really planning to argue all night? Both girls turned to him. Makoto calmly said, it's the middle of the night, and you're yelling in the room. What if you wake the other residents? Akika couldn't help but giggle. Before you say that, could you maybe take your hand out of my bathrobe? Oops, sorry. Auto-targeting was still on. Makoto replied as he withdrew his hand. Nina rolled her eyes hard. Makoto, unfazed, pretended to think deeply. Seeing as you're both being just as noisy as you were in the living room earlier, I guess I'll have to punish you again. Akika stopped laughing. Her gaze turned cautious. Nino's cheeks were flushed too. But instead of fear, what she felt was anticipation. Living room and punishment in the same sentence. He's talking about that again. Kickball punishment, of course. Nina remembered watching them kiss just now and, annoyed, flipped over and lay down on the bed. Go ahead and do it. Akika was stunned. Nino, you're seriously getting the first move at a time like this? Nino was still only wearing a bathrobe. The hem barely covered her upper thighs, so her long, pale legs were nearly entirely exposed. Lying face down, legs together, the soft curve of her figure stretched under the bedside lamp's glow. Makoto couldn't help but salute her silently. The sight made it impossible not to look at the round little ball. Chapter 143, 142, full of sneaky vibes. Nino's sudden cooperation had clearly caught Akika off guard. As the older sister, one who believed she'd always been ahead, she found herself outmaneuvered at this critical moment. It stung. She could only watch helplessly as Makoto raised his arm and gently brought it down. Smack. The sound wasn't sharp. It was dull, muffled by the bathrobe. But Akika heard it very clearly. Makoto also thought it was very clear. But not because of the sound. Because of the sight. As his palm landed, the bathrobe fabric compressed under it. When he lifted his hand again, the fabric bounced back, gently rippling. It perfectly showcased Nino's exceptional figure. Okay. Now it's Akika's turn. Nino sat up, her cheeks flushed, but her eyes sparkled with smug delight. She may as well have had Nino is winning this race written across her face. Akika, of course, picked up on that look. After a brief pause, she put on a pitiful expression. As she lay down, she lifted her head slightly and bit her lip. Makoto. Be gentle, okay? Nino shot her a death glare. Still acting? Makoto, however, commented with appreciation, that's a great look. If you had glasses, it'd be perfect? Glasses? Akika suddenly looked thoughtful. So Makoto likes girls with glasses? Who doesn't like cute glasses girls? Makoto replied. As the saying goes. Choose glasses if they're there, choose thunder if they're not. Just then, Nino chimed in from beside them. Contact lenses count as glasses too, right? Oh right. I totally forgot about that. Makoto had been too distracted playing along with Akika earlier to notice Nino squinting multiple times. Habitual behavior from not wearing glasses. They count, sure. But contacts aren't as cute, said Makoto. Nino hesitated. But contact lenses. You're going to say they don't hide your beauty? Well, that's a bit blunt, but yeah, you're right. Nino couldn't help but giggle. Makoto lifted his left hand. While Akika was distracted, he swiftly brought it down again. Still, he didn't hit hard. But Akika let out an exaggerated squeal. It was high-pitched and flirtatious. Clearly meant to tease. Akika, that's enough. Nino finally lost patience. She pounced while Akika was still lying down and landed 2 quick slaps. What are you doing? Akika yelped, clutching her rear and sitting up quickly. Stop pretending. Makoto didn't even hit you hard. Don't think I didn't notice. I'm the one getting hit, not you. How can you assume how hard he hit? You're arguing again. Just as the sisters were about to start bickering full force, Makoto calmly warned. Don't forget. You're both only wearing bathrobes. If those belts accidentally come undone, I won't be polite. Nino froze instantly and backed off. She didn't question what he meant by won't be polite. To be honest, she wasn't afraid of Makoto doing something reckless. But she was afraid of him doing something reckless in front of her sister. Those were two different things. Two different kinds of stimulation. It's late. Time to sleep, Makoto declared. Okay. Akiko agreed cheerfully and even turned off the bedside lamp. Nino pouted. If I'd known earlier, I would have smacked her a few more times. But when she lay back down under the covers again, she suddenly froze. Wait a second. This was literally the definition of sleeping under the same blanket. Nino stared at the dark ceiling, her heart pounding. One blanket. 3 people. The air was filled with the soft scents of the 2 girls, and also the familiar smell of Makoto's shampoo. Nino was certain she wouldn't be able to fall asleep tonight. Then she realized. There wasn't a single sound coming from beside her. Had the 2 of them really decided to rest properly? No way. She and Akiko were both only wearing bathrobes. There was no way Makoto could resist. Yeah. Akiko definitely wouldn't behave either. Nino made up her mind to keep an eye on them. Since she couldn't sleep anyway, she might as well monitor things to see if Akiko tried to sneak off again. She lay there pretending to sleep, waiting and waiting. 15 minutes passed, and her patience wore thin. But there was still no movement. She even held her breath and listened closely. The breathing beside her was slow and steady, nothing like the rapid breaths of people up to no good. Did Akiko actually stay put? Nino was in disbelief. Just then, she suddenly felt an arm tighten around her waist, being pulled into a firm embrace by a pair of large hands. The next moment, warm breath brushed her ear, along with Makoto's low voice, "What are you waiting for? The cool down release? Oh no. He came for me." Nino's heart pounded like a drum, but her reaction was swift. She turned to face him directly. In the dark, her face burned hot. "Why are you?" Akiko's asleep," Makoto whispered, his tone thick with secret thrill. To Nino, it sounded like the most wonderful thing she'd ever heard. "Out of my way, I'm making my move." Nino lifted her flushed face, relying on instinct to find Makoto's lips. Before pressing in completely, she muttered her thoughts aloud. "I saw you 2 kissing earlier." "And?" asked Makoto. "I want one too." As she said this, she seemed to find the darkness too disorienting, so she pulled out the phone under her pillow, lowered the brightness, and turned it on just enough to light up their faces. By the soft glow, she could see Akiko lying quietly, her sleeping posture proper. It looked like she was really asleep. Nino felt the thrill deepen. But that didn't matter now. She set the phone aside, raised her blushing, burning cheeks, and kissed him on her own. In just a moment, her gaze transformed from shy to dazed, before her eyes finally fluttered closed. Her once awkward hands now wrapped naturally around Makoto's neck. She was passionate and bold. After a brief moment, their lips parted. Makoto's hand caressed her soft waist as he teased softly, "So this is what you were waiting for?" Nino blinked, then giggled with blush. "You could say that. Then, was that enough for you?" "Not even close." Makoto lowered his head, their body heat seeming to ignite against each other. At some point, the belt of her bathrobe had already come undone. Her curvy figure was now fully enveloped in Makoto's arms. Keep your voice down." This time, it was Nino who whispered the line. And then her lips were sealed once more. Maybe it was because Akiko was right next to them, but her breathing was all over the place. She could clearly remember that the last time she kissed Makoto in the bathroom, she could at least maintain some composure. But now, she couldn't. Her eyes had long shut tight, her small hands wandering through Makoto's hair and around his neck. Her body writhed restlessly beneath the covers, her smooth legs occasionally lifting or brushing against the sheets, mirroring the fiery unrest within her. As for her bathrobe, it had already been pushed off into a corner of the bed. If she kept moving like this, it might even fall to the floor. She clutched Makoto's neck tightly and murmured, "Makoto. What is it? I want to do bad things again." As she whispered, even her eyelashes trembled. Makoto, inhaling her intoxicating scent, thought to himself, the gift of Nino hasn't even activated yet, but she's already going all in. Nino's mind was a blur, her eyes watery. Without waiting for a response, she quietly asked, "Is Akiko really asleep?" "Makoto, she hasn't moved at all, right? But I think she's pretending," Nino said worriedly. "She's super sneaky at home. Pretending to sleep is exactly something she'd do." Makoto nodded. "Got it. I'll touch her to check if she's faking it." "Nino. Can't you use a more normal method?" Chapter 144, 143, half for each. In truth, Akiko was not asleep. Makoto already knew that. Right after the lights went out, Akiko had secretly grabbed his hand and spent a good while tracing shapes in his palm in silence. Just like spies exchanging information in a movie. So Makoto understood exactly what she was writing. Go make a move on Nino. That short sentence held a mountain of meaning. Makoto could finally be certain about what she and Nino had discussed earlier in the bathroom. It was no longer just Akika's world alone. She had decided to let Nino into her world. Even though she had already made her decision, actually hearing Nino say, "I want a kiss too," and later, "I want to do bad things," still brought a pang of jealousy to her chest. Her original plan had been to wait a little longer. Until Nino had adjusted, or was completely into it. And then she would sit up naturally. Then, they could all be honest with each other, and Nino wouldn't be so embarrassed that she'd go ballistic, ruining everything. But what she hadn't expected was that Nino, for whatever reason, actually wanted Makoto to test her. Wouldn't it be better for the two of you to keep cuddling and enjoying yourselves? Why turn it into some teasing game? Akiko now felt maybe she had acted too rashly, but it was too late. Makoto's hand was already at her waist. The belt she had tied earlier was now being undone again. In an instant, her pale, soft waist was exposed. Her flat stomach was flawless, with no excess fat. Her curves were graceful. Evidence of her strict body management. Then the blanket was lifted slightly. Nino peeked her head out from behind Makoto, only her face visible. She had been debating whether to stop him. But now, through the dim glow of the phone screen, she clearly saw her sister's perfect figure. And her mind started to compare. After some serious observation, she realized that Akika's body was a little better than her own. Just a little. Akika's waistline was more defined, giving off a more delicate feel. If they weren't sisters and didn't already know each other's body shapes well, she might not have noticed it. Nino thought for a moment and guessed Akika was maintaining her figure for the sake of her acting career. When Akika's bathrobe finally came loose, Nino completely forgot about suggesting a more normal method for Makoto to check if she was awake. Because she was completely mesmerized. Akika's robe slid off her shoulders under the phone's glow, creating a hazy beauty. Her soft, fair skin peeked through seductively, making it nearly impossible to look away. "Still want me to test her?" Makoto asked. "Yeah." Nino answered without hesitation. Makoto glanced at her focused expression, thinking, "Aren't you even more into this than I am?" Still, he understood why she was like this. It wasn't just the thrill of sneaking around. It was also because Akika loved teasing her sisters at home. Now that Nino had the chance to both test and tease her sister, how could she possibly resist? And besides, her own bathrobe had vanished who knows where. Akika still had hers on. If her sister saw her like this, it'd definitely be awkward. At this point, Nino's brain couldn't think straight. She clung to one seemingly logical solution: if no one wears anything, no one feels awkward. Huh? She's still wearing panties. Nino made another discovery. Makoto, unfazed, replied, "Isn't that normal?" Nino, "Not normal. I'm not wearing any." Wait. She'd just found the contradiction. They had bathed together and both changed into bathrobes afterward. Logically, their clothes should have all gone into the washing machine. So how did Akika still have a pair of underwear? Nino looked at Makoto suspiciously, but he calmly said, "She left some of her clothes here before." That was only half true. After Akiko had once insisted on doing something wild with him late at night and her clothes hadn't dried from the rain, Makoto had gone out to buy a new set. Nino didn't know that. She thought Akiko had treated this place like her own home and purposely left clothes here. The more she thought, the more sour she felt. Seeing that Makoto's hand had paused, she couldn't help but urge, "Why did you stop? Go on and test her." Makoto almost laughed at her attitude. "Aren't you a little too eager? What if you wake her up? Then I'll do it." Nino stretched out a smooth arm and moved closer, intending to handle it herself. But just as her hand reached halfway, Makoto grabbed it. Staring into her puzzled eyes, he said, "Sorry. I'm really territorial." Nino. Before she could respond, Makoto turned and pulled her into his arms, lowering his head to kiss her. Nino blinked, then instinctively lifted her arms to rest on his back. As for the whole testing thing, she didn't care anymore. Let's just get to the bad stuff first. She closed her eyes in embarrassed delight. Makoto's sudden move had been triggered because Akiko had gently pinched his hand just moments ago. That was her way of reminding him, get on with the main event. Akiko took the opportunity to open her eyes and slowly moved closer to them. When she pressed against Makoto's back and saw Nino, dazed from the kiss, she knew her sister had completely lost herself in it. If there had still been space between the three of them earlier, now the two sisters surrounded Makoto from both sides, trapping him completely. "Are you two done yet? Isn't it my turn now?" Akiko chuckled softly, finally revealing her hand. Nino was stunned. She quickly opened her eyes, But with Makoto holding her so close, she couldn't even see Akiko on the other side. She tried to speak, but all that came out was a muffled whimper. Akiko giggled again, her voice like a murmur. Nino. You weren't in the lead after all. Just moments ago, Nino had still been overwhelmed with shame. Then she heard her sister say, there are some things you'll never understand unless your big sister teaches you. Teach me what? What is she planning to do? What am I supposed to do? Nino's watery eyes trembled as Makoto finally released her. Right then, she saw Akiko lift the blanket, flashing her a sultry smile. Watch carefully. I'm only going to teach you once. Under Nino's stunned gaze, Akiko pulled Makoto toward her and casually shrugged off her loose bathrobe. Now Nino finally understood what Akiko was trying to do. She had been right. Nino hadn't taken the lead. She had fallen behind. All of Akiko's earlier preparations came to full effect at this moment. But Nino didn't run. She didn't even try to cover her face in shame. Her wide eyes stared in amazement as she carefully studied what was happening. Overcome with emotion, her face flushed red, she boldly declared what she felt deep inside, we each get half. You're not allowed to hog him all to yourself. The gift of Nino officially activated. Chapter 145, 144, A triangle is the most stable structure. The next morning, Nino opened her eyes to a ceiling that didn't belong to her room. At first drowsy, she instantly snapped awake. She quickly turned to look at the two people beside her. Thankfully, they were still asleep. But the moment of clarity brought back memories of the previous night, and her pale little face turned burning red. No wonder Akiko had told her she wasn't in the lead. Those two had already hit a home run. A full home run. Thinking about those shameful scenes made Nino feel like her whole body was overheating. And her body did feel rather sore. She instantly blamed it on Akiko's wicked hand. She didn't hesitate to shift all responsibility onto her sister. But she couldn't deny it. Without Akiko's live instruction last night, she probably wouldn't have picked it up that fast. It was also thanks to sharing the bed that Nino discovered one of Akiko's little quirks. She liked playing the role of a knight. Compared to Akiko's boldness, Nino had been much more reserved last night. Half and half. Remembering her own words made Nino flush with embarrassment. She had actually said something shameful out loud. As her thoughts wandered, her beautiful eyes slowly drifted to Makoto's face. Sleeping in one bed like this was a bit cramped. But she didn't dislike it at all. Because deep down, she knew Akiko hadn't been willing to share either. But in the end, she agreed. She had even laid the groundwork for Nino for so long. So this is the strength of being a big sister. For the first time in her life, Nino sincerely acknowledged her sister's status in her heart. She gazed at Makoto's sleeping face for a few seconds, the corners of her lips curling into a soft smile. As expected of the boy I like. He looks exactly like my type. Nino no longer felt like sleeping. She rested her chin on her hand and carefully sat up a little. Because of her movement, a fair arm slipped out from under the warm blanket. Even though the curtains were tightly drawn, the faint light in the room still revealed skin as smooth as white jade. The subtle curve of her shoulder blades was graceful and refined, her blushing cheeks formed a delicate smile, and the aura around her no longer carried her usual bold confidence. But rather, a soft, alluring femininity beyond her years. This must be the beauty of a girl evolving into a woman. Nino was entranced. She gently caressed Makoto's face with her small hand, murmuring, "Even if this isn't quite how I imagined it in my dreams, I'm still really happy you didn't leave me behind." Makoto remained motionless. Nino grew bolder and chuckled softly. "Akiko's a cunning bad woman. But I admit, she was better than me yesterday. And she thought everything through more carefully. Then shouldn't you say thank you, Akiko already?" Makoto suddenly opened his eyes. Nino was startled and flinched, quickly furrowing her brow. "Sorry for scaring you," Makoto said as he pulled her into a gentle hug, knowing he had tugged at her sore spots. Blushing, Nino pouted in embarrassment. "You were pretending to sleep?" "No," he said. "I just felt like someone was touching my face, so I woke up." Nino immediately regretted it. "I shouldn't have reached out just now. I could have secretly enjoyed that moment longer." Truthfully, Makoto had been awake for a while. His routine was always consistent. It was around 5 now. His usual time for morning training. But since everyone had fallen asleep together last night, he couldn't exactly sneak out early. While resting with his eyes closed, listening to Nino's soft mumbling, he nearly burst into laughter multiple times. She was just too cute. "Makoto," Nino called out softly. Makoto lowered his head to meet her gaze. She hesitated and asked, "Have you ever thought about what we'll be like in the future?" A loaded question. But Makoto simply hugged her tighter and smiled. "We'll figure it out." Reassured by his confidence, Nino raised her face and gave him a kiss. "Is that a challenge?" Makoto asked suddenly. Nino blinked. What challenge? She then felt Makoto's hand, which had been on her waist, begin to move upward. Don't. She whispered in embarrassment, her cheeks flaring up again. I haven't recovered yet. She added. I know. He said. I just want to get a feel for it. Fine. Nino was shy. But a little proud too. The fact that he couldn't resist even now proved just how much he was attracted to her. Feeling his roaming hands, she wriggled slightly and whispered hotly, once I recover, I'll be ahead of Akika. She said it with full confidence. But the next moment, Akika's voice came from beside them. Since you said that, does that mean I can take advantage of the time you're recovering to widen my lead? Nino jumped in surprise. You were pretending to sleep too? She glanced at Makoto. He gave a helpless smile. Don't look at me. I really didn't know she was awake. I wasn't pretending. Akika said as she sat up. You two just woke me up. And wow, Nino, you've got so much energy. Already getting frisky with Makoto this early in the morning. Why do you always say things so unladylike? And why do you sound so experienced? Because I'm an actress. That's just an excuse. As the argument was about to begin again, Makoto freed a hand and pulled Akika into his arms as well. Once again, he unlocked the epic achievement, left and right embrace. As for why it was only epic and not legendary? Well, the Nakano family has 5 daughters. As the saying goes, triangles are the most stable structure. Would you agree? Makoto seized the opportunity to distract them before they could start bickering again. Nino pouted. I don't agree. Akika giggled. That's because I interrupted your morning flirting session, right? Nino was just about to explode when Makoto suddenly said, should I help you punish Akika? Yes. Nino answered without hesitation. But when Makoto actually started messing with Akika, and Nino saw her sister's flushed face and shy, delighted expression, she realized something was wrong. Oh no. Akika's enjoying this too much. So she grabbed Makoto's other hand, blushing furiously. Half and half. The 3 of them fooled around until past 6 in the morning. Knowing that Nino hadn't fully recovered yet, Makoto suggested all 3 of them skip school today. Akika eagerly supported the idea. She had been busy with auditions, script work, and school lately. Both her body and spirit were exhausted. Nino was a little worried. We didn't go home last night, and we're skipping school today. What if Miko or the others ask about it? Akika calmly replied, don't worry. I'll say I got cast in a new role and stayed overnight to get acting tips from Makoto. What about me? Nino puffed her cheeks and pointed at herself. Although honestly, her cheeks were naturally puffy anyway. Akika grinned. You'll say that since tutoring is starting soon, you didn't want to be dead last in the prep test, so you came to Makoto for some extra help. That excuse is terrible. It's too embarrassing. Terrible? I think it's great. It'll make Miku and the others focus on the test, and then if Makoto backs us up, they'll probably even scold you for not studying harder. After hearing the plan, Nino stayed quiet for a long while before finally replying in a complicated tone, Akika. Aren't you too good at this? What's wrong with being skilled? Akika shot back. The more skilled you are, the more I suspect you secretly jumped the gun at least 10 times before last night. Please, I'm not that tough. Makoto's like a wild beast. Wait. Nino, you're blushing. So cute. Shut up already. The whole day, Makoto stayed home with the 2 of them. The girls finally returned home together around dinner time. In the end, Nino did use the excuse Akika gave her. And just as Akika predicted, Miku and the others were successfully distracted. Although Itsuki still had her doubts, Akika called Makoto in front of her sisters, and the 2 performed a perfect phone skit that finally eased her suspicions. Over the next few days, Nino secretly visited Makoto 3 more times. Without Akika knowing. Savoring what one has tasted. This state had now also manifested in Nino. Of course, she also wanted to prove she was better than Akika. And so, she ended up willingly handing over her defeated CG. She collapsed even faster than Akika. The short film's release date happened to fall on a Sunday. Something Makoto had specifically arranged. It aired at 11 a.m. perfectly timed for lunch hours, with no fees or restrictions. It could be watched directly online. Because the short film carried special significance, all 5 Nakano sisters got up early that day, even inviting Makoto over. He arrived with some practice test sheets in hand. It's up now. Akika's slightly excited voice called out, and soon all 6 people were seated in the living room. Scenes like this weren't limited to the Nakano household. At Yukino's apartment, both her older sister and mother were present. Ms. Sayuri just messaged me. She's watching your film with her husband and daughter. Mrs. Yukino Shita said. When she said film, she deliberately emphasized the word. They won't be disappointed. Yukino replied, taking a deep breath, confidence gleaming in her eyes. Haruno teased, "We should have invited Makoto over. Watching it together would have been more atmospheric." Yukina remained composed. Thanks to Makoto's guidance last time, she had already came to terms with her emotions. Chapter 146, 145, You Can't Hide Eyes That Want to Punch Someone Amazing. Akika's acting was great. It felt totally different from when I visited the set. Fushimi-kun even put in a solid effort as a background extra. As soon as the short film ended, the Nakano living room burst into lively discussion. Even Nino joined in praising it. Which meant the smile on Akika's face never faded. Still, she didn't forget to credit others. Honestly, Makoto, Itsuki, and everyone else all worked really hard on this. Makoto didn't speak the entire time. He simply watched the girls excitedly chat. When they finally calmed down, he pulled out the practice tests. "Alright, now that the film's over, let's prepare. We'll do some testing this afternoon." "No problem." Surprisingly, Akika was the first to respond. Clearly, she was in such a good mood that she didn't even mind studying. Makoto ended up staying at the Nakano home for lunch. During their post-meal break, Akika giggled and pulled him into her room. "How do you think I should thank you?" She purposely used a teasing tone, her alluring eyes scanning Makoto up and down. "However you want to thank me, I'm fine with cash too." Makoto played along. "Really now?" Akika batted her eyes, then turned to lock the door. But just then, Nino's voice rang out, "Akika, don't you dare lock that door. Who knows if you'll try to get answers to the test questions out of Makoto." Akika's steps paused. She looked back at Makoto with a regretful smile. "Too bad, Nino won't let me thank you." Of course, she knew what Nino really meant, no sneaking bites. It wasn't possessiveness. Just concern that the others might see and get the wrong idea. "No worries. I'm happy to put it on your tab," Makoto said as he pulled up a chair and sat. Akika thought for a moment, then shut the door anyway and waved him over. "Come here." "For what?" "Just come." Hearing her seductive voice, Makoto figured she was planning to hit his weakness. Which was fine. He liked challenges too. As soon as he walked over, Akika dragged him behind the door, her face flushed, voice honey sweet. "Want me to give you 3 minutes? Who do you think you're looking down on?" Makoto frowned. Akika burst into laughter. "What are you thinking? Of course I know 3 minutes isn't enough." Her voice softened, and excitement gleamed between her brows. "I just checked online. Everyone seems to love the film. I'm seriously happy right now. So happy I want to." She paused. Then suddenly wrapped her arms around Makoto's neck, her eyes bursting with affection. "I want to do naughty things with you." Makoto teased, "So that's it. Every time you're happy, you want to be naughty. You can interpret it that way. After all, it's just the two of us here." Her flushed face inched closer, her eyes sparkling with seduction. "You should kiss me now, Makoto," she whispered. But of course, a kiss wasn't enough for Makoto. This had to go hands-on. Otherwise, it wouldn't count as targeting his weak spot. And this time, Akika meant what she said. She promised 3 minutes. So it was only 3 minutes. Now she lay breathlessly in his arms, her clothes askew. "No more? Because Nino's coming?" Makoto asked. "No, because if we go any further, I'm really going to lose it." Makoto was sure she was doing this on purpose. Flirting was her specialty. Even with only a couple tricks up her sleeve, when she used them seriously, the sensual charm she exuded was irresistible. "Why did you close the door, Akika?" Nino's voice called from outside. Akika struggled to stand and whispered, "Nino's been wanting to see you too." Makoto caught her meaning. "So what do you want me to do?" Akika thought for only 2 seconds, then her eyes lit up. "Hide in the wardrobe. Left side. As for what's next?" She grinned mischievously, a little suggestively. She might as well have told him outright, "Let me teach you how to handle Nino." Or rather, the proper way to enjoy Nino. Makoto had no idea what she was planning exactly, but it sounded fun enough. He stepped into the wardrobe, and Akika quickly shut the door behind him before opening the room door. "Where's Makoto?" Nino didn't even look at Akika. The moment the door opened, her eyes darted around the room. But surprisingly, she didn't spot Makoto anywhere. "Come in first." Akika didn't shut the door completely. She left it slightly ajar. She pulled Nino further inside, smiling. "I know you've been sneaking over to Makoto's place these past few days." Nino froze. She thought she'd been pretty discreet. "No need to be nervous. It's just us here," Akika added. Nino blushed slightly. She understood that us didn't mean just anyone. "So, where is he?" she asked, wanting to stop Akika from teasing her further. Akika replied slowly, "If you missed him so much, would you get frisky with him at home?" "Why are you asking such a dumb question?" Just answer me. No, of course not. I'm not as pervy as you are. But even as she said it, Nino wasn't very confident. Ever since that day, she'd realized she was also kind of pervy. Still, she could at least say she wouldn't directly drag Makoto into her room like Akiko did. That's not fair, Nino. I'm creating an opportunity for you, and you're still criticizing me? Akiko held her hand and led her to the wardrobe, stopping in front of it. Lowering her voice, she said, Makoto's inside. Let's see if you have the guts to go in. Nino froze. Wait. You're not even doing it in the room anymore? Now you're moving it into the closet? Or have they always been doing it this way, and I've just been behind the times? Akiko saw Nino's confused look and didn't explain. We're starting the practice test soon. Makoto's going to focus on serious stuff. You won't get another chance. But you. Nino hesitated. She was tempted. Akiko giggled. I'll stand guard. See? I'm such a good sister, right? With that, she flung open the closet door. From inside, Makoto, who had heard everything, said with a dry tone, Akiko, are you pranking again? Nope. I'm really creating an opportunity for Nino. Didn't you notice? Every time you come over, Nino can't take her eyes off you. Akiko replied shamelessly. Nino scolded, you're one to talk. When we watched the film together, you wouldn't stop clinging to Makoto. Didn't you notice how Miku and the others were giving you weird looks? Akiko smiled. Just say it. Do you want me to stand guard or not? Nino fell silent. And then, Akiko pushed her sister into the closet. After shutting the door again, she let out a long sigh. Yes, this had a touch of mischief. But she was also genuinely helping Nino. Now that everyone had already slept in the same bed together, she thought back to that night when Mayu and Shizuka Hiratsuka came over and she still dared to get frisky with Makoto. She knew she'd definitely unlock more achievements in the future. To avoid startling Nino at the time, she figured it was best to help her now. As long as Nino remembers that I supported her, we'll be even closer. Then we can take on Yuki no Shita together, Akiko thought. Several minutes passed. And Nino still hadn't come out. Akiko figured out the truth, Nino was probably completely absorbed. I knew it. She was still hesitating just now, but now that she got a taste of the sweetness, there's no way she'd be willing to come out. Akiko imagined the embarrassing scene in her mind and even started to get a little tempted herself. Just then, the door opened, and the elegant legs of Miku in black stockings stepped inside. Fushimi-kun isn't here? She asked, glancing around in confusion. Akiko didn't say a word. Miku looked thoughtful. I remember seeing you pull him in just now, Akiko. Where is Fushimi-kun? Akiko's brain kicked into overdrive. I was working on a new script. Miku's gaze was puzzled, she didn't get why her sister suddenly brought this up. Akiko kept her composure. I was researching a scene where a burglar breaks in and the female lead reacts. Actually, Miku, since you're here, you can play the burglar. A question mark practically appeared above Miku's head. Akiko pretended not to notice. Normally, if a burglar suddenly enters, the heroine would be terrified and anxious, hoping someone would come save her, right? Though I'm not sure why you're bringing this up. That is how they usually portray it on TV. Miku nodded instinctively. Akiko smiled sweetly. So at that critical moment, the hero hidden in the wardrobe would leap out. Right as she said this, the wardrobe door swung open. Makoto stepped out solemnly. Exactly, I'm playing the hero. Miku. As for Nino. Before Makoto had even stepped out, she'd already escaped to the far side of the wardrobe, hiding herself entirely under Akiko's clothes. Akiko shot Makoto a look of approval. If he hadn't played along, she really wouldn't have been able to get Miku out of the room. After all, she'd seen Makoto go in with her own eyes. Akiko looked up at a bewildered Miku. That scene I was researching is part of the script I'm working on. Miku blankly extended her hand, then retracted it, pressing a finger against her fair chin, looking like she wanted to say something but didn't. Finally, she stared deadpan at Akiko and Makoto. You can't hide eyes that want to punch someone. Chapter 147, 146, they really want to improve. Everyone's test results are in. As expected, Itsuki performed the best. At 2:30 p.m. in the Nakano household's living room, Makoto addressed the 5 girls sitting across from him in a row. Knew it'd be Itsuki. None of the girls were surprised. They already heard that Yukino had been tutoring Itsuki. Who got second place? Akiko asked curiously. Aside from the smiling Itsuki, the others turned to Makoto expectantly. I'm only announcing the top score. He replied. Eh? How come? If you want your name announced, compete for first place. That's where I'm putting all the spotlight. Ooh, sounds exciting. Yotsuba clapped eagerly. The others, meanwhile, looked at him like, why are you acting all edgy all of a sudden? Makoto waved it off. Anyway, I now understand your strengths and weaknesses. Take a 15-minute break, and then we'll begin the supplementary lessons. Okay. With the short film released successfully, even the normally lazy Akiko no longer resisted studying. As for Nino, she still had being in the lead on her mind. After the three of them shared a bed that one night, her desire to surpass Akiko had only grown stronger. A night character, huh? I can do that too. Nino was burning with determination. As the girls dispersed, Makoto opened his notes to prepare. Just then, Miku came over and, without a word, sat down next to him. He could smell the faint fragrance from her hair and asked, "What's up?" Miku's expression was flat. "What were you doing in that room with Akiko just now?" Makoto replied, "Didn't Akiko explain? We were working on a script together." Miku stared into his eyes, but when she couldn't find any cracks, she said blandly, "I don't believe it." When he popped out of the wardrobe earlier, she'd been shocked. She'd even walked out and opened the door again to make sure she wasn't hallucinating. That kind of bug-like behavior clearly revealed her lingering doubts. "I knew you wouldn't believe me." Makoto calmly opened a bag next to the sofa and asked, "You've heard that Akiko passed her audition, right?" "Yeah. She got the role she wanted. We're all happy for her." Miku nodded. "That's worth celebrating. But she's still a newcomer. I suspect she'll only have minor lines and screen time. She'll probably play a disposable character." "Disposable?" Miku tilted her head in confusion, which, paired with her expression, looked quite cute. Makoto explained, "It's a traditional Japanese horror film. I haven't read the script, but I'd bet she's playing the dumb teammate whose poor decisions advance the plot and amplify the horror, while making the protagonist shine." "Oh, I've seen that kind of character before." Miku nodded, but then asked, "But what does that have to do with my question?" "I'm providing proof." Makoto pulled a neat stack of papers from the bag. Miku blinked. "What's that?" "I had some free time recently, so I wrote a new script. It's not a short film. It's a full movie. We won't be able to shoot it, of course." He handed the pages to her. Miku blinked and took them, scanning the first page, Sixth Sense, Paranormal. She read the title softly, her fingers brushing the headphones around her neck. "So you're telling me you really were helping Akiko study because you even brought the script with you?" "Exactly," Makoto said, striking while the iron was hot. "We might not shoot it, but if you want experience, I can arrange for you to visit sets regularly." Miku went quiet, then asked softly, "Is it also a horror film?" "To be precise, it's a story about family love disguised as a horror film. If Akiko finds out, she'll be thrilled." Miku didn't even flip through the script before handing it back. She believed him now. He'd always struck her as reliable and competent, and after their little chat, she had no more doubts. "Oh right, do you want to know who came in second on the test?" Makoto suddenly asked in a low voice. Miku's eyes sparkled. "Didn't you say you wouldn't tell us?" "Well, I wasn't going to. But since you were the first one to approach me after the results came out, I'll share this secret with you." "Secret?" Miku's blush deepened slightly. Maybe it was the word secret being too intimate, but she couldn't help feeling curious. "Who was second?" "You were," Makoto said. Miku froze. Her first instinct was that Makoto was teasing her. But he added, "I'm serious. Apart from Itsuki, you had the best score." "That can't be." She mumbled in disbelief. She'd heard that Yukino had also been tutoring Akiko recently. So how did she end up in second place? Makoto didn't elaborate further. But he knew the answer. Akiko and Nino had both been too preoccupied with messing around. One was making out with him in the room, and the other had even unzipped her gym clothes inside the wardrobe. In that state, expecting them to focus on a test would have been absurd. While Miku was still processing everything, she suddenly felt a warmth on her head. A hand. She looked up in surprise. Makoto said simply, "Good job. Keep it up." Miku blushed and softly murmured. Her voice carried a hint of shyness, but she truly meant to keep working hard. At the very least. She didn't want to disappoint him. She recalled his encouragement, and everything he'd said in front of her sisters. Her expression grew more determined. 15 minutes later, the 5 Nakano girls returned to the living room. As Makoto brought out a mini whiteboard, Akiko leaned her head on her hand and grinned. "Makoto, I don't know if I should say this." "Then don't." Makoto replied without looking. But Akiko didn't plan to stay quiet. "Even though we're all happy to have you as our tutor, you do know that we're all pretty hopeless when it comes to this stuff, right? And we lack passion." Nino added awkwardly. "I'm actually looking forward to Fushimi-kun's lessons," Yotsuba said brightly, her ribbon bobbing as she tilted her head. Miku sat properly, black stockinged legs neatly folded, pen and notebook in front of her. Itsuki, as usual, had her serious face on. Clearly, besides Akika and Nino, the others had different attitudes. Makoto remained calm. Don't worry. I'll help you find that passion. Then he pulled a bottle of powerful Red Bull from his pocket. If you get tired, drink this. Akika and Nino still looked unmotivated. Until Makoto started lecturing in a living room. All 5 girls suddenly began taking notes furiously, with determined expressions. Any outsider would have thought they were secret overachievers. Makoto adjusted his ankle and snapped a photo with his phone, sending it to Nakano Maruo. 10 minutes later, Maruo replied, "Sorry, I was attending to a patient." Are they seriously studying that hard? Are you sure this isn't staged? Makoto, Mr. Nakano, you know about staging photos? Maruo, ever since you helped me connect with my daughters again, I've been learning about young people's trends. Makoto, then take a closer look at the photo. Besides Akika, who might have the talent to become a top actress, do you really think the others could fake that level of focus? Maruo, you're right. Nino and the others don't look like they're acting. I misjudged. Apologies. But for them to be so serious. You must be quite the tutor. Makoto, it's not that I'm good at tutoring. It's that they really want to improve. Makoto put down his phone and looked back at the girls who were buried in their study exercises. Before the final test of the summer vacation, he was confident he could help them all pass. Day by day passed, and the short film continued to gain popularity. The one who benefited the most, of course, was Akika. Not only did her social media following increase significantly, but she even got recognized by young people on the streets occasionally. One night, while talking to Makoto on the phone, she said excitedly, "The director has seen our work. He added a few extra scenes for me. Makoto, I'm so happy. If I didn't still have vocabulary to memorize, I'd come see you right now." Makoto played along, letting her freely express her joy. On Friday, after school, Makoto went straight home because the Nakano girls were having dinner with their father. As their relationship with him improved, Nakano Maruo had taken Makoto's suggestions seriously. No matter how busy he was, he'd make sure to have dinner with his daughters at least twice a week. Just as Makoto was thinking about what to eat for dinner, his phone rang. The caller was Utaha. "Makoto, I've got something fun here. If you've got time, come over. I'll send you the address." Utaha's voice sounded a bit strange. Like she was holding back laughter. "What's the fun thing?" Makoto asked. "You'll know when you get here." "Alright, send me the address." Makoto didn't pry. If Utaha wanted to be mysterious, he could play along. Besides, he was already tempted by the thought of seeing his senpai in black stockings. But just as he stepped out, his phone rang again. This time it was Yukino. "She's not calling to ask me to come over too, is she?"